Welcome to the English Leadership Academy's Do's and Don'ts for Part 3 of the Speaking Test. Watch this video and get some great advice on different things that will make you successful on Part 3. You ever feel this way when you think about the IELTS Speaking Test? Everyone tells me that Part 3 of the Speaking Test is so scary. Well, don't worry. This video will show you many great tips to get a high score on Part 3 of the IELTS Speaking Test. We hope you enjoy this video, as well as all the rest of the videos from the English Leadership Academy. You can see them on our YouTube channel. And if you enjoy this video, please subscribe and see all the new videos coming out soon. When you see this red bullseye in any of our videos, along with text that is highlighted in red, it means that the video is explaining a strategy or a tip or advice for you to focus on in order to get a high score on the IELTS test. And with a brief overview of Part 3 of the speaking test, we should look at Part 2 first. Whatever you were asked about in Part 2, you will be asked about that similar topic in your Part 3. If you were asked about a photo displayed at your home in Part 2, the Part 3 question could be, do you think art is important to society? And in Part 2 of the speaking test, a lot of the answers are focused more on you, your opinions. And in Part 3, the questions become much bigger. And they deal with questions of society, culture, and they're more global in nature. And here, you're going to share big ideas as part of your answer. And in Part 3 of the speaking test, there's 3 major categories of questions. One is an opinion, one is about comparing, and one is about predicting. In the opinion section, you want to give your big opinion with passion. In the compare section, you want to compare some of your big ideas. And in the prediction, you want to make a prediction of a big idea in the future. And in Part 3 of the speaking test, along with all the different parts of the speaking test, we want you to practice with a purpose. It's a great thing to practice, but it's even more important to practice with a purpose. In other words, you want to try to simulate the test conditions as much as you can. So in your speaking portion, you really want to record yourself and be able to listen to it later. You want to time yourself. Everything in the speaking test is timed. And in Part 3, if you can train yourself to give 40-second answers, it can work really great. And we can show you ways where that can work out well for not only Part 3, but also Part 1 and Part 2. Let's begin the do's of Part 3 of the speaking test. First one is probably the biggest one. Be confident. This is so important. You speak so much better when you speak with confidence. And we'll train you to gain confidence when you practice with a purpose. You'll learn how to speak with confidence as you train with us. And again, your speaking ability just improves so much when you are confident. Another very important thing to do on the speaking test is really think that you're going to do well. If you think you'll do well, you really will do well. IELTS is part English test, but it's also a part psychological test. They try to get you worried, nervous, scared, intimidated. And literally, if you think you'll do well, you will get a higher score. And when the examiner asks you the questions in Part 3, it's really important just to relax a little bit and listen. You want to listen for different keywords in the question. You want to make sure you address the important part of each of the questions. And if you don't understand the question, it's okay. Ask the examiner to repeat the question or clarify the question. The last thing you want to do is not give an answer that is not related to the question, that won't help your score at all. So it is okay to ask. This is a big one in part 3. In part 3, you're going to be asked to give an opinion, and you'll be asked to give a lot of opinions in part 3. So it's really important that you become pretty good at this. And you really want to practice giving opinions. Because if you can practice giving opinions, it'll just become so much easier. And so again, you want to practice with a purpose. And part of your practice will be really learning how to give different opinion expressions. And this is really important. You want to become comfortable with this because you're going to give a lot of opinions in part 3. And so instead of just saying, I think, practice a number of different ways to say the same thing. Things like, if you ask me, or it seems to me that, or in my opinion, or maybe it appears to me that. Keep trying these. Make them natural. Make them easy for you. And as you become good at giving opinions and using different language to give opinions, you want to follow that up with giving reasons. And so you want to give a reason for every answer you give. You'll need to support your answer by giving a reason. And when you practice with a purpose, you'll learn how to give a reason supporting all of your different answers. This is really important. In addition to becoming very good at giving your opinions and supporting those by your reasons, one of the other things you'd like to become very good at is giving examples. This is a great strategy to use. If you give an example to any of your reasons, you'll be able to expand your vocabulary and also add a few seconds to your answer, which can be really important in a timed speaking test. One of the aspects that can be overlooked in your preparation of part 3 is becoming good at giving a contrary view or the opposite view. By definition, every opinion has somebody else with a different opinion. So you're giving a lot of opinions here. But that means that there are a whole bunch of other opinions. So if you can get good at thinking about the opposite side of your opinion, well, you might be asked about it from the examiner during your part 3 question and answers. In preparing for your part 3, it can become really important to focus on using modals. And as you think about this becomes really helpful when you're sharing big ideas or opinions or reasoning. A variety of different words here can make a big difference in your communication. Things like can and would and should, could, may and might, as well as will, must, and shall. Make sure when you're practicing with a purpose that you make an intentional effort to use these important words. So let's go down the list here of the different do's that we think you'll find very helpful when you're practicing for the speaking test. Be confident and think you'll do well. So important, both of those. Really listen to the question and don't answer a question unless you really understand it. Give an opinion. And when you're giving an opinion, learn opinion expressions. Also, learn to give reasons and examples. Take some time and really learn to think of the opposite viewpoint and be able to express that. And use modals. Modals are very important in part 3. Now let's move on to the different things we don't want to do during the speaking test. You don't want to worry about making mistakes. Mistakes happen for all of us. If you make a mistake, just move on. Remember, this is a speaking test. Don't get hung up on the fact that you just made a mistake. Let it go and move on. This is one of the ones that many people fall into a trap on. And people think it's important to try to memorize the answers, but this is really just a terrible idea. Don't memorize your answers. If you really want to succeed on this test, memorize the process of how to come up with the answers. Learn how to think. Don't memorize the answers. It becomes very obvious to the examiner when a candidate has attempted to memorize the answers. And they'll stop the test right there. And it won't be very good news at all for you. Also in part 3, don't go too far off topic. In our part 2 video, you see that we talked about the examiner will give you a lot of range. But in part 3, you want to stay within the topic. They're asking you pretty specific questions, and you want to be able to stay there. And so there's not a big reason to go too far off topic. Really listen to the question and stay within the general topic. It can affect your fluency and coherence score if you don't stay within the topic. Here's another one that people kind of fall into. It's really just a bad habit. Too many ums and ahs and If you want to get rid of this, tape record yourself all the time and listen to your tape recordings. It really is just a bad habit. When you practice with a purpose and you listen to yourself on your recorded voice, you'll stop doing this. In part 3, it can be pretty easy to answer a whole bunch of questions with I think, and then I think, and more of I think. So really learn how to use other phrases here and try to stay away from the word I. So you might be able to use more of a general phrase like it appears or many people consider. And if you do use I, then maybe I expect. And so when you're practicing, give all of those a try and see if they can become normal for your everyday speech. One of the things that becomes tempting as you're studying, and a lot of people advocate for using this, when you're trying to buy a little time and the examiner asks you a difficult question and you respond with, oh, that's a good question. And that's okay to use once, but don't use it more than once. It can really become a habit and it's distracting. If you do use it more than once, you'll certainly not benefit on your grade from the IELTS examiner. And don't worry at all about your accent. It is more than perfectly acceptable to have an accent. Embrace your accent. Where you get in trouble is if your accent impacts your coherence or your pronunciation, and it's just difficult to understand you. And you can get feedback from people along the way as to whether that's the case or not. But otherwise, embrace your accent. It's a great part of who you are. And to summarize, the various things that we don't think you should use on part 3, or really any part in the speaking test, would be the following. Don't worry about making mistakes. You'll make mistakes. We all make mistakes. If you make a mistake, just move on. Do not memorize answers. Just a terrible idea. Don't go too far off topic. Really listen to the question, take your time, and then stay within the topic, especially on part 3. Too many ums, too many ahs. Stay away from them. Record yourself. I think. Try not to say those. Try to find different ways to use the word I think. Trying to buy time by saying, oh, that's an interesting question. Don't do that more than one time. And please, don't worry about your accent. Embrace your accent. It's great. We hope you've enjoyed this video from the English Leadership Academy on the do's and don'ts of part 3 of the speaking test. Please look to our Facebook page to find additional helpful hints and strategies. And if you like this video, please subscribe to our YouTube page. Thank you.